Zack Polanski completely destroys with facts and logic Trevor Phillips on Sky News, full of gotcha questions, particularly the last question. But Zack Polanski takes it in his stride. He's good at this. And let's get straight into the interview because it's a good one.
Zack Polanski, you'll be attending the Remembrance Day rituals today. Why does this day remain relevant?
It remains relevant because we still live in a world that's particularly in global turmoil right now, where the threat of war remains ever constant. And indeed, whether it's in Gaza or Sudan, there are conflicts and genocides happening throughout the world. I think the important moment to stop today is both to remember the fallen victims, to remember the world wars we've had, and also to look ahead towards peace and diplomacy, and how we can work together across nations to make sure that peace is never taken as something that is complacent or a given, but actually is always an active piece of work to strive towards a more peaceful world.
When you say fallen victims, you do include the military, the soldiers in that?
Yeah, undoubtedly, people who gave their life for this country.
What would they expect him? No, fuck the soldiers. They're people too. They are victims of war, often young men who, for various reasons, various motivations, go out to war, often with good intentions. Like, what did he think he was going to say there?
Your party wants to get rid of nuclear weapons, move to emphasis onto diplomacy, development, and so on and so forth.
Like, he has to frame that as in like, oh, the only option is nuclear armaments, nuclear apocalypse, or like diplomacy and development, and like maybe trying to move away from that, maybe.
If Greens were part of a government, would we expect to have fewer men and women underarmed by the end of your term of office?
Well, I think that depends what's happening in the world. I think it would always be foolish to assume anything about military budgets without knowing the political context you're working in. I would say more widely, though, if we're talking about right now, we've got a Prime Minister who's spending £15 billion on nuclear weapons and at the same time saying there's no money to lift the two-child benefit cap, for instance, something that's keeping 350,000 children in poverty. So I think it's right to question political choices at budget
surely
time.
the deterrent is valuable in a world that has Vladimir Putin in it.
Well, I want to see everyone...
And not helping children not be starving isn't? Interesting.
Denuclearize, including Vladimir Putin. But ultimately, the only way you can do that is by showing...
But I have to say that would be in the realms of the miracle.
Well, you're laughing at it, but I think it's important that we don't laugh at peace. I think it's really important.
No, I'm laughing at the idea that Vladimir Putin is going to give up his nuclear weapons because somebody asks him to.
Well, you could have laughed at the point of Nelson Mandela negotiating with the ANC, or we could have laughed at the Irish during the Troubles.
You're not sincerely making the comparison. Come on.
I am making the comparison. I think it's always impossible until it's done, and I think it's really important. I don't think it's likely. That's a different question. But I think the first question has to be, do you believe that we can work for peace and diplomacy in the world? Do we believe that we can work with people that we have mass disagreement with, that are they're obviously created an illegal invasion of Ukraine? These are really serious issues. And at the same time, I believe we should never leave the negotiating table. And part of that is showing both the moral and courageous leadership to come on TV and say to you, even though this might be a position that's ridiculed, I don't think we should find peace and diplomacy ridiculous. I think we actually, the most brave and courageous and authentic to do is say, I believe we can have a world without war.
So Prime Minister...
Yeah, and also Russia's economy's on its knees. We've got leverage. And also other countries have denuclearized. Belarus, Libya, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Ukraine. It's not obviously very unlikely in the current climate, but it's not impossible. And that's the point of someone like Zack is, what are the parameters of possibilities? I think we need to have a bit more imagination of how we tackle Russia. Yes, they've got many nuclear capabilities, but the status quo isn't working, is it? For most people. That's the point.
Polanski would negotiate with President Putin?
Undoubtedly. I think it would be sociopathic behaviour to say you wouldn't negotiate with the president or a prime minister of any country.
Can I just ask you, before we move on...
Again, he thinks that's a got you. What, you're going to negotiate with Putin, which is the only way to potentially get a deal and an end to the illegal war that he's warring against the Ukrainian people? What is this?
You're wearing the white poppy as well as the red poppy. What is the implication of that?
The white poppy began after the First World War, mainly from women's groups who were talking about peace and anti-fascism. So on the same day that we're remembering the fallen, it's also looking ahead to the future and saying we want a world of peace.
All right, let's talk.
All right, fuck that. Well, we're not interested in that in Sky News. Not interested in solutions and peace. Oh, surreal timeline.
About COP, the climate conference in Brazil. Prime Minister's coming back, having refused to put British money into the Tropical Forest Forever Fund on the grounds that, frankly, we just can't afford it. He's right, isn't he?
No, it's absolutely outrageous.
We can afford nuclear armaments, but not to help people in need or alleviate child poverty and starvation. I mean, 350 children in hunger. Like, I think people underestimate how poor we are in society, unequal we are in British society. A lot of hungry children right now. Not interested in that. Labour, Sky News, not interested.
We often talk about the fact, or the Prime Minister often talks about, that there's no money left, but there always seems to be money for nuclear weapons. We just spoke about that. Since the pandemic began in this country, billionaire wealth has doubled, but our assets, our power and our wealth has been stripped away. And so when it comes to climate negotiations that are international, we need to look at the cost of inaction. And when we look at the Amazon rainforest, for instance, that's often described as the lungs of the world. These are vital resources, both for nature and for our well-being, but also ways of reducing carbon emissions and making sure we have carbon capture. So again, we have the Prime Minister who's spending billions of pounds on carbon capture technology and unproven technology at scale, but can't do the basic investment in making sure that we're protecting forests. Now, he's gone to Brazil. I'm pleased, but what's he gone to Brazil for if he's only gone there to say, oh, I'm not going to give you any more money?
Yeah, but if he were to put money into this kind of thing, I guess he would say, there's your tax rises right there.
A tax rise?
Yeah. How do you pay for it? You tax people.
Well, we could bring in a wealth tax and multi-million.
Well, how are we paying for Trident? How are we paying for the military increase in spending?
And billionaires, just a 1% tax on assets of £10 million or more and a 2% tax on assets of £1 billion or more could raise between 15 and 25 billion pounds. The wider point here, though, is about the cost of inaction. If we continue to allow both internationally and domestically carbon emissions to rise, we know we will face increasing wildfires and floods.
Oh.
These are both dangerous for people's lives, but also, if we're going to talk about the economy, they're incredibly destructive for our infrastructure and for getting around. And by the way, you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to the insurance companies.
All right. Well, so you sound pretty disillusioned with the Labour Party. So perhaps we can just get one thing off the table. There will be no cooperation between Greens and Labour Party to defeat reform.
Well, I don't think I'm alone in my disillusionment. And in fact, a poll out yesterday showed that the majority of the population have completely lost trust in Keir Starmer. Now, this is a man who ran on the coattails of Jeremy Corbyn, but ditched every single pledge before he was even in power. We've got the two-child benefit cap, the disability cuts, the genocide in Gaza. No, Keir Starmer is not a man I would be willing to work with.
OK, so there will be no electoral deal, however informal, with Labour, even though the division on the left might let reform into number 10.
Well, there's two things there. So in a recent poll just yesterday or the day before, Greens are actually outpolling the Labour Party. We're in 3 points ahead. So the real question you should be asking Keir Starmer is, will he stand aside to make sure that Nigel Farage isn't Prime Minister? But more widely, I was answering about Keir Starmer. I don't think Keir Starmer will be the Prime Minister at the next election. I think it's another question whether he'll even be an MP. And so will I work with a future Labour leader? Depends who the future Labour leader is.
Oh, who would you like?
It's not really for me to decide who the Labour leader is. What I would like to see is more and more people voting and joining the Green Party, which is why membership of the Green Party has over doubled in the last 2 months. I intend to keep helping make it grow.
OK, but a lot of people in the Labour Party who might fancy some sort of alliance with the Greens would be quite interested to know who they might support in the event that there's a vacancy that would make that alliance easier. Give them some guidance.
Well, I can give some examples. I think Nadia Whittome, for instance, would make an excellent leader of the Labour Party. I don't think it's something she's necessarily in her ambitions right now, nor would the Labour...
That would never happen, but that would be pretty based.
party, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying necessarily support that.
A left-wing MP, a very left-wing MP.
Well, I think you say very left-wing, but actually when we look at what's happening in this country right now, look how far we've shifted to the right in terms of the conversation around migration, the conversation around privatising our National Health Service through the back door. I don't think these are very left-wing ideals, and I don't think that would be a problem if they were. But actually what I'm saying is where the majority of the country are at, which is we should nationalise our public services, invest in our National Health Service, and tax multimillionaires and billionaires just a little bit more.
Well, tax multimillionaires and billionaires... only them? That's not going to raise much.
Oh my God, really? Well, if we crack down on tax havens, capital gains tax, make corporations, the Amazons, Vodafones, Googles, Starbucks actually pay their fair share. If we make them actually pay what they owe society, yes. But the idea like, he's like, okay, taxes, funding the NHS, these popular, not radical at all ideas. He's like, okay, well, very left-wing, very extreme. It's just so weak.
Money.
No, so there's other things like bringing capital gains tax in line with income tax. The reason why that matters is right now we tax earned income more than we tax unearned wealth. That seems absolutely outrageous to most people as a result of political choices, and we can make different political choices.
The Chancellor, it appears, is likely to raise income tax, maybe 1p, 2p, for everybody. Will your members of Parliament vote for that?
I can't demand what our members of Parliament vote for because they have a free vote, but I would say the principles that we're all standing by is that those with the broadest shoulders should face the biggest burden. And that doesn't make sense to do that across the board universally. People are struggling so hard right now.
So you don't want to rise an income tax?
No, people are tired and exhausted. Their wages haven't gone up, but food prices are going up. How can you make some of the hardest working people who haven't had a pay rise in years pay extra tax and allow multimillionaires and billionaires to continue not paying capital gains?
All right. Your party, probably of all the major parties, has the clearest position on this issue of gender identity and so on. You believe trans women are women.
See, what do you want to talk about? Doesn't want to talk about inequality. Doesn't want to talk about really taxing wealth. Not really interested in peace. Not interested in actually ideas that will help people. Like, take children out of poverty. Ending a war. Just interested in gender. This is the media today. And this is the problem, the media environment, where they're not interested in what Zack has to say. It's just framing it in a way that's like, we can't get rid of Trident. We can't tax the billionaires. What is a woman?
Was the BBC right to censor its presenter, Martin Croxall, for her eye roll at having to say the words pregnant people?
Well, I push back first of all and say it's not a belief. Trans women are women and trans men are men, and also non-binary identities also exist. And I think it's always important to be really clear about that. In terms of the BBC, they obviously have their own editorial guidelines. It's not for me to tell the BBC how to conduct themselves. In fact, it's for me to be scrutinised. If you're asking me my opinion, though, I think it's really important that journalists are independent and partial, and I think eye-rolling as a journalist is clearly an unprofessional
I think she just said, if trans women are women, why don't we just say women?
If trans women are women, why don't we just say women?
Yeah, who needs pregnant people when you've got the word women?
Well, I think those are different questions to the question.
There's different types of women. There's tall women. There's skinny women. There's larger women. There's women with black hair. Women with white skin. There's different types of women. Words have utilitarian, use. They are how we describe the world. There's different types of women. Trans women are just another type of woman.
Question you're asking me, which is, should a journalist be eye-rolling? And I just think it's quite obvious, no, they shouldn't.
Zack Polanski, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Again, not interested. Not interested, gotcha. Should we... What is that fucking question? Just so pathetic. It's just the media environment, and you wonder why people are seeing Nigel Farage as the hope for the future. People are given that because Sky News, BBC, the mainstream media platform these people and normalise their talking points. But hopefully, Zack, others across the world are going to normalise just common sense. popular policies, wealth taxes. Maybe we challenge the status quo on the economy. Maybe we cut the 2 welfare cap for struggling families across Britain. Maybe we ask more of the billionaires who have all of the money. And maybe we don't demonize immigrants and trans people. I think it's a modest proposal, and if you do too, join the Green Party. We need your support now more than ever. Join the membership on this channel, 99 pence a month. Comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.